year, a new segment, and a very different race course with a show that we like to call Depreciation Nation. But before we get into today's video, why don't you hit that subscribe button at the bottom of your screen so that you don't miss some of the most eclectic automotive content on YouTube. Today's segment is very different from anything that we have done before. And I'm sure you could imagine that anybody that rides racehorses for a living might have owned some interesting cars along the way. Today's guest has had some of the most interesting of the interesting, and he's ridden some of the most famous racehorses in history. So, he's here to share a few of those stories about both horses and his favorite rides, so let's get to it. Okay, so we want to welcome Gary Stevens to the channel, and for those of you that recognize him, you know who he is, and for those of you who may not know who he is one of the all-time winning jockeys in the history of the sport, having won 3 Derbies, 3 Preaknesses, and 3 Belmont Stakes. He took us to the most exciting Preakness ever caught on television in '97 aboard Silver Charm. And then he repeated that in the Breeders' Cup in 2016 aboard Beholder. And as you can imagine, somebody in that sport might happen to like automobiles. And so Gary was kind enough to come on the channel today and talk with us. So first off, we want to thank you for your time. And we want to say welcome.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. Anytime I can talk cars, I enjoy it. My first job was as a lot lizard washing cars when I was 14 years old, believe it or not, for an old friend of mine who I'm still friends with today. He was at a Pontiac Cadillac dealership and Honda when the Honda cars had first started out. We could start driving in Idaho when we were 14 because of farm equipment. So my first vehicle I bought off of a guy named Kelly Ellis, who I worked for. It was a 63 Volkswagen Bug. That was sort of famous in Boise, Idaho, for some kids that went to a Catholic school, Bishop Kelly High School, and they were kind of wild. And that car, when I got it, it was psychedelic, had shag carpet with beer stains all over it and stuff, and leaked oil like a sieve. I bought it for $250, but I sold it for $400 about a year later. So that was my first automobile.
That sounds like a majority of what we do on the channel. This is kind of off the cuff, but do you have any really memorable rides?
Of cars?
Of horses, and then we're going to go into cars. Like if you had 3 top rides, what would they be?
Well, the pinnacle, the one at the top was the Pacific Classic on Beholder when she beat the boys by some 11.5 lengths. And the move she made that day around the final turn was something I'd never experienced in my career. And I rode a lot of good horses, but that day she became a horse that is in her own paddock. People say, who's the best you ever rode? And there's a lot of good horses, great horses that I rode, sprinters, turf horses, route horses, classic horses and stuff. But I wouldn't say she was necessarily my favorite. The one who owns that honor is Silver Charm, but she was on that particular day the best that I ever rode. And then the ride on Victory Gallop in 1998 in the Belmont Stakes when Real Quiet was going for the win, so memorable because I was actually rooting for a Triple Crown winner. And I was rooting for Real Quiet if I couldn't be the one that beat him. I'm very close friends with his owner, Mike Pegram. And, it was bittersweet because I was rooting for a Triple Crown winner for the sport. But it was probably the most memorable ride where just as close to his perfect ride. Matter of fact, that's what I named my autobiography that came out many, many moons ago. But it's called The Perfect Ride, and it was satirical because I never felt I rode the perfect ride. I was always very critical of myself. I always thought that there was something I could have done better, but I didn't make any mistakes at all in that race and made all the right decisions. And it was just less. I mean, it was a smidgen that he won by, and had we not made and I had the equine athlete to agree with the moves that I was wanting to make. So that one sticks out. And then, the 3 Kentucky Derby wins, winning colors, was something that I'd never experienced before. That feeling of joy and just the ultimate, an excitement that I never experienced before in my life. And
awesome. And so let's translate that to cars now. And was there ever a car that got close to that?
Yes, when the Vipers came out, I got a Viper, and I'll be honest with you, the Vipers are scary. They should send you to a race car driving school, because basically they are a race car, legalized on the road. And at the time, they had the highest speed of any street car factory. Top speed was 205 miles an hour in that thing, and 6-speed horsepower like I'd never felt before. I'd never driven a race car up to that point. And I remember driving down the 210 freeway one afternoon, and somebody in a Corvette came up next to me, and they were wanting to get it on a little bit. And I was probably doing about 70, 75 at the time. And I dropped it down in the 3rd gear, and I jumped on it and lit up the tires. And I'm like, oh, geez. I don't want to tell you what the top speed that I ever had it. But it was faster than I'd ever gone. I've driven a stock car at Ontario Speedway, and got up to 183 miles an hour in that stock car, and I was going faster than that in the Viper.
Understood. Now, you mentioned that you'd had some Porsches before. So what did those consist of?
The first one I bought, I had bought a Jaguar, and I can't remember. It had to be around 88, I guess. I bought a Jaguar Van Pla, and man, I'd had it for about 3 months, and I think I had it into the dealership like 6 times in the 3 months. Transmission went out on it. Just everything that could go wrong went wrong. I went into the dealership, and I won't name the dealership, but it was in Pasadena, and they also were Porsche dealerships. And I said, look, they got a thing here in California called the lemon law, and this thing's a lemon. I don't want it. And so I wound up buying a 911, a red 911, and I drove it home. And my wife, Tony, my first wife at the time, when I came home, she said, they gave you a red Porsche user car. And I said, no. I said, they've got the Jaguar and I've got this. And I think I wound up paying another $20,000. They gave me the credit for what I'd paid for the Jaguar, and needless to say, that was the last Jag that I bought. But I had that Porsche for probably 5 years, I guess. And then the other Porsche that I bought off of the guy that owned a dealership in Santa Monica, and I rode horses for him. And I'd called him up and I said, hey, have you got what have you got for used Porsches over there, man? I want a toy to play with a little bit. And he said, you're not gonna believe. He said, I've got a black Porsche over here with a turbo body on it, but it's not turbo, and it's loaded. It was a pretty famous movie actor, comedian that had owned it, and it only had 6,000 miles on it. And I named it the Black Widow, and it was sweet. It was probably one of my favorite rides that I've ever had as far as sports cars go. I miss that car. I wish I still had it, to be honest with you.
That is awesome.
The other car, or it was a truck actually, that stands out to me. as I told you about that Volkswagen that leaked
Hmm.
oil and everything else. And my older brother Scott, he was riding. He's a couple of years older than I am, and he'd started riding already. And I just turned 15, and that Volkswagen, it got to where I had to park it on a hill because it wouldn't start. So I had to like push start it. So I'd park it on a hill and put it in reverse and pop the clutch, and she'd start up. And it was kind of embarrassing to drive to school and stuff. And anyway, woke up on a Christmas morning. Scott had come back from Yakima, Washington, and it was Christmas morning, and two older brothers. I was the youngest, and everybody kind of got their big present, and I got some pajamas, maybe some underwear, some socks, and just kind of looking around. And my daddy says, "Have you looked up in the Christmas tree? You're sure that there's nothing else up there?" And there was a little ring box, and I found it, and I opened it up, and there were a set of keys. And Dad says, "Open up the drapes." And there was a white 55 Chevy pickup with step side, had side pipes on it, cherry bomb glass packs. It had a 327 Corvette engine in it, Hurst 4-speed, Holley double pumper, and that was. I wish I still had that one too.
What do you drive now?
I'm driving probably my favorite being H58, soon to be 59. My favorite ride that I've ever had. I have a 2015 F-150 Ford Platinum. It's sweet. It's smooth. It's like riding in a limousine. A huge back seat for my daughter, my dogs, whatever. I've got a shell on the back of it, a camper shell. It's been to New York 3 times. It's been to Kentucky. It's been cross country about 4 times, and it's got a EcoBoost 6-cylinder engine in it with twin turbo, and it does what I need it to do. And it's nice ride. And then I've got a 2004 H2 Hummer that I drove off the lot with 3 miles on it, and I've still got that, and probably going to have it till the wheels fall off of it. And I've got a 2015 Jeep, that trail Jeep that I've done some modifications to, just put it that way. It's off-road, and that's my toy.
That is awesome. Is there anything on your radar for the next one?
To be honest with you, this F-150, I've got about 140,000 miles on it, with all the driving back and forth cross country. I like my dogs to come with me when I travel, and pack all my own stuff. I don't like flying a whole lot, and I'll probably when I feel it's time, I'm probably gonna get another of what I've got right now, but I'm gonna drive it as long as it's like brand new. Runs like a top, and the old fix or repair daily thing, touch wood, hasn't come into play. It stays out of the shop. I keep him serviced, and it's a good ride.
That is awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the channel. I want to thank you for talking cars. If you ever want to come back, you are more than welcome to. We can explore some additional stories about cars, and we'll talk to you soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So that is a conversation with Gary Stevens, certainly one of the more interesting gentlemen we have had on our channel. We want to thank Gary for his time. We want to thank Churchill Downs for allowing us to be here to capture some of this amazing footage. And lastly, we want to thank old friends, home of retired Derby winner Silver Charm. Remember to hit that subscribe button at the bottom of your screen so that you don't miss awesome automotive content like this, and we'll talk to you soon.